You won't be.
We're good.
Boyd Parr from Spencer Center. I'm a senior.
Audrey Simon from Walnut Hills High School. I'm a junior.
Chris Heckman, CPS parent and climate club leader.
Mike Morosky, board member.
Dan Hoying, General Counsel.
Stephanie Scott, Assistant General Counsel.
Chris Burkhardt, Chief Operating Officer.
Emily Bell, ASME Local 232.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. It feels a little strange having this massive table to myself. You'll notice I'm typically flanked by two other board members, Ms. Kendra Mapp and Mr. Ben Lindy, neither one of whom could be here today, which means that we cannot do any official business. To be able to do official business in a committee meeting of the board, you need at least a quorum, and a quorum is 2 of 3. And we obviously, do not have that. But we're going to continue with the meeting because we can have a meeting and host a meeting for informational purposes. And we have at least a couple items that require information and good discussion. And so we're just going to dive right in to the reason that our friends from Walnut Hills and Spencer Center are here, which was a renewable energy and climate change resolution that they brought us a couple months ago now or so. And Mr. Heckman, to my right, your left, has been working with them as a volunteer and a CPS parent, someone who cares about this issue, and a lot of other adults. But really, it's these two young folks and their friends that have really been pushing us on this. And I know I, for one, at least appreciate it because all good ideas in a healthy, at least functioning democracy come from people who can see the future more clearly than adults. And in my highly unbiased professional opinion, that is you all and not me. And so the way I can be helpful, as we've talked about, is to help move these things along in a big, messy bureaucracy. And thankfully, our big, messy bureaucracy of $500 million or so has wonderful people that work in the administration who are smarter than me over here. And so, in the ideal world, we can serve as a conduit in our seats for you all to them. And so that's what we'll do today in an informational capacity. And the reason we kept the meeting was largely because of this issue, because at least in my mind, and I think in our general counsel, is not to speak for him and his office, but this resolution was going to come back to this committee at least one more time anyway. There was probably no chance it was going to be signed, sealed, delivered today. As such, we will be able to have the information from this meeting. Ms. Davis is here taking notes so that my two committee members can get caught up to speed, and that'll be on them to do it, and I know they'll do it. So typically how we start, talking to my friends over here, typically how we start this is I will look at the smart people and I will ask them to give updates on what I asked them to do with the committee last time. And what we asked them to do was to go through the resolution, which Mr. Burkhardt, that's Mr. Burkhardt, and he's the Chief Operating Officer of the district. And if that sounds fancy, it's because it is, because he does a really good job. And he brought us a lot of information last time about what we could do, what we might be able to do, what would be hard to do now, et cetera. And then this is Mr. Hoying. He is the lead attorney lawyer for our district. And that's Mrs. Stephanie Scott, who's the brains behind his operation.
Not quite.
He's also a lawyer.
Not quite.
And then Miss Crable down there, who makes sure that she's actually in charge of all of them. And so that's who we have. And then that's our, and then you heard that's Miss Bell. She represents, she said AFSCME, and those are all the security guards, cafeteria workers, and custodial staff in your schools. So she makes sure that we make sure they get paid. What did I miss? And paraprofessionals. I got food services. Well, I said cafeteria. Anyway, you don't always, that's why they're here. They help me. And so that's who we have today. And so I'm going to turn it over to our lawyer and our Chief Operating Officer to kind of talk about what we asked them to do, which was to go back through the resolution, kind of see what would be possible, and then to maybe start talking about a timeline for what would it look like for us to do the things you've been asking. How long would that take? 10 years, 20 years, 1 year, 10 years, 5 years? So I'll turn it over to y'all.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is why I like you all so much, because that's how I still think, and adults don't think that way. So thank you. Go ahead.
I think that was a really good description of kind of the process of the policy committee and committees at CPS. So, you know, something gets introduced to the board, sent to the board, the committee, hears from kind of expert witnesses on where to move forward. And then it does take a meeting or two. We only meet once a month. So to kind of offer a red line, and then the board can give us feedback on that. The public can as well. So really glad you're here this morning. With respect to this resolution, one of the best written resolutions we've ever received from the public. I mean, just a really very well argued, supported resolution. So whoever was involved in writing this, it's really well done. In terms of, I'll just say a few words about some changes we made, and then I'll turn it over to Chris. Recommendations we made with respect to the whereas clauses. We agree. I mean, we believe what you believe. So there were no changes with respect to the background and sort of the reasons why the district, wants to move forward in the same direction. I will say, I think, and I won't speak for our operating officer, Mr. Burkhart, but I think in general, our position on this was directionally we are aligned. And have been for some time. Through the whole facilities master plan, which started like in the year 2000. Yeah, there you go. So I have an extra copy too, if you need one. Oh, yeah. Or Kathy? Need one more? Yeah, one more. Yep. Yep. Cool. You want to bring them up one more packet? Thank you. Perfect. So again, the whereas clauses, no changes. Directionally, we are aligned and have been for some time. So starting in the year kind of 2000, when the district embarked on the facilities master plan, make it, certainly with respect to the, almost all the buildings in the district were either completely rebuilt or renovated kind of from studs, to all the way from the ground up. Environmental concerns were foremost, I think, in the board's mind during that renovation. Lots of the buildings that were rebuilt are what's called LEED certified. Chris can tell you a lot more about what that means than I can. There were green roofs added, renewable energy used. Several of the buildings have geothermal heating and cooling systems, which, in talking to kind of amongst ourselves, like our belief is schools should be leaders in this. And I think where funded properly by the state and others, we can be leaders in it. So that brings us to this resolution. And again, Chris went through each of these paragraph by paragraph last meeting. I think in general, with a few changes recommended, with respect to the audit, I think, in terms of like Chris was thinking what the language that was used would be a really comprehensive audit. We work kind of ongoing, I think, with energy professionals to make sure we're directionally going in the right to the right place. We already are working with electricity providers that use renewable energy, and I think it's our hope that they will continue to increase the percentages of renewable energy that they're using. With respect to the electrification of like school buses, for example, we don't have our own fleet of school buses. As you guys know, we work with First Student, Peterman, and other vendors, but we have encouraged them to continue to expand their fleet of electrical school buses. And Chris can talk more about it. Already have identified a grant that will, with First Student, I think, to bring some electric school buses into the district. Only other thing I'll say on the electric appliances, the sort of caveat we wanted to add is, we are also committed to moving toward electric appliances as long as they're available, economically feasible, and that the appliance performs in a reasonably similar fashion to what it's replacing. So think that pretty much sums up kind of the changes that we proposed. I'll turn it over to Chris to see if he has anything else to add. Thank you.
Yeah, at risk of repeating myself from the last meeting, so I don't know if you were able to listen or watch the recording from the last meeting, but I think Dan summed it up really, really well by saying that we are 100% committed to having a green and sustainable school district, as well as the city has put all their eggs in that basket as well. And so we are aligned there. The city just came out, I believe it was November, with their 2023 Green Initiative Plan. And so they're about 10 to 12 months ahead of us in releasing, a document that gives us direction for the next at least decade, if not longer. But looking at this resolution, I can say in almost every circumstance, we are 100% aligned with the direction that we want to go. Where we are not aligned in some areas is the resources to get there. And so we're looking at those resources saying, okay, we've got this pot of money, i.e. resources. What can we do to make a big difference early on? What maybe takes a little bit longer to do? And so I'll just hit on a few topics that Dan talked about as well. Happy to open up for questions because I'm sure you've got a lot of questions. I also don't want to repeat myself. So give me the head nod if I'm talking about something that we can move on from, that I'm repeating myself. Please do so, because the last thing I want to do is waste anyone's time with something that I've already said. In relation to busing and vehicles, we are really taking a deep dive into our carbon footprint in relation to electrifying our fleet. Couple of things to note here, and actually after our last policy meeting, had a very rich dialogue with UTS, which is a bus vendor, about electrifying as well. So they want to get on the bandwagon with First Student and have those conversations. We're really going to be looking at vans too, and how we can electrify our van fleet as we look at the load capacities of our 72 passenger buses. We're realizing that in some cases, vans are going to be more economically feasible and give us a less of a carbon footprint. So we're going to be looking at that. Obviously, that also ties into some ad hoc and some other board discussions that are happening. So we're kind of doing that right now in a little bit of a holding pattern, but getting ourselves ready for that. We have been in consultation with some co-ops as well as some local car dealerships in how do we electrify our fleet. We want to make sure that when we do it holistically, and we just don't buy one vehicle here and then one vehicle here, that we're actually building a fleet that is sustainable. With that, we have to install electric grid within the district. There is some funding for that, but it's not totally funded from the IRA grant. So there's some funding gaps that we have to work on as well. In relation to a lot of our vehicles in the district are maintenance vehicles, and those are pickup trucks and vans. Right now, there is not a sustainability vehicle out there that will meet our needs. So although we want to go in that direction, right now, the private sector, if you will, does not have a viable option. So as I started the conversation, we want to move in this direction, but in some cases we have to wait for the private sector to kind of get that innovation and get us moving in the right direction, so we have those options available. Same thing in relation to, we've had lots of conversations about how do we electrify our landscaping and our lawn mowing and our trimming and our leaf blowers. And while leaf blowers and trimmers are almost there, they're probably about 40 to 50% of their gas counterparts. Lawn mowers and commercial lawn mowers. Let me say this: commercial. So I don't want anyone to walk away and say, "Well, I've got one at home that I have a postage stamp that I'm mowing every day." We're talking about 6 to 8 acres of mowing every day. So we're talking about really high level mowing. But the electric lawn mowers aren't commercial grade, are not there yet for us to take a bite of that apple and move forward. So although we want to, and we're looking at technologies, those technologies aren't there yet. In relation to HVAC, we are looking at a myriad of different options right now. And so again, in HVAC is really exciting because the technologies out there right now are cutting edge. We're looking at a boiler chiller combination in which you have a chiller, you take the hot air from the chiller and you are able to heat the building from that hot air that you would normally dissipate, off of that chiller. So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds and to get too convoluted, but that technology is just coming available for commercial operations, whereby we can lessen our carbon footprint by not having a boiler and a chiller, and then, figuring out what to do with each one of those residual effects. It's a combination of both. So again, it's something that we're looking at right now. Technology is really, really on the forefront. We want to be good stewards, but we also don't have the ability to be early adopters in certain cases. And so we're going back and forth between how do we thread that needle between being sustainable, moving to green, but also not being that early adopter, because some of those corporations, school districts, entities who have become early adopters have had growing pains and realized that the first step they took was a misstep and having to start over again in a different realm. And I use this example previously. If you were to be an early adopter and you bought a flat screen TV, even a 30 or 40 flat screen TV back in the day was, $2,000 or $3,000. Now you can go to Walmart, Target, or online and pick one up for a couple hundred, and the technology is vastly better than it was originally. So we were talking about the same types of things when we're talking about green and electrification. The other piece that I want to note to anyone listening or anyone in the room, we're looking at making the entire district sustainable. And that means from the electric buses that are coming into our campus, with our lawns mowed by electric mowers, with our lights being LEDs that are cleaned with Green Seal certified chemicals, as we come into a building that's commissioned 30 minutes before you walk in the front door, meaning heat or air conditioned. We're going into the cafeteria and having breakfast with sustainable food on sustainable paper and plastic products that are not only made from recycled products, but will be recycled after we use them. So that's where we're going. That's the vision of how we're going to make this district around for a long time in making sure that we are doing it in a sustainable manner. The issue that I started with talking about is we don't have all those resources and we don't have the technology to bite that apple 100% right now, but we are really, really energized and looking forward to it. So I know that I did a long soliloquy, but that was my opening, and happy to answer questions and talk through that.
You want to say anything about the roofs, the solar, that you've done on that?
Yeah, great. So thank you for teeing that up, Dan. Appreciate that. And I have a document. I'm not sharing it today. We're still in the midst of finalizing some last pieces of it. So I would be remiss if I shared something that wasn't 100% accurate. But our team of roofers in the district, along with our facilities folks, have gone out, and we know that we want to go down the solar path within our district. And so last meeting, I said that we had approximately 26 roof leaks in our district out of our 66 buildings. So roughly a third of our buildings do not have a roof that is 100% ready for solar. So we wanted to actually put actual data to the ability to put solar. So we went through, and our facilities team went through all of the buildings in our district. We also hired an outside consultant who's a roofing expert to look at all those roofs secondarily. And they're experts in not necessarily solar, but the roof in relation to solar. So I want to make that distinction. They are not a solar company, but they are a roofing company who also oversees the installation of the solar panels in relation to roofs. And so we had them do an assessment after our assessment. What that assessment showed is we have currently 3 schools out of 66 right now that would be ready for solar if we were to pull the trigger today and said, we're doing solar tomorrow. and we have three schools. We have a myriad of schools and the vast majority of them that we could do solar on after we do some sort of restoration or replacement of that roof. And that cost for any of those could be anywhere from 200,000 all the way up to $3 or $4 million on each one of those roofs. And we kind of are starting to put the actual dollar figures together for each one, which is why I don't want to share this document today because we're not ready for that yet. Just know that we are currently working on it. We also have a group of roofs that, for one reason or another, the cost to not only fix or get the roof ready for solar may not give us a big enough space or an area by which solar makes sense. And that we could put solar panels up, but it wouldn't necessarily give us a return on investment that makes sense, as well as there are some roofs that just don't lend themselves. I'm going to use Cannes as an example. Cannes roof just doesn't lend itself to being able to have solar panels, and it's a tile roof and is very steep and has a lot of different angles to it. And then we have a number of schools, and I think it's somewhere around 8 or 9 that it's just not feasible. Like the school maybe have a canopy of trees really nearby, so we don't want to have to cut down the trees to be able to put solar. And so there's some roof gardens exactly at least 2 of the schools. So do you get rid of the roof garden to put solar panels up? Again, these are just roofing, and I can go down another 15-minute conversation about green space and how we cover parking lots with solar panels. That's a whole nother conversation that we're actually looking at as well. So I don't want you to walk away saying we're only looking in one realm. We're looking at a whole bunch. And thank you, General Counsel Horing, for bringing some of those other things up as well, that we're looking at get this again holistically as how do we?
Yeah, I just thought that was cool because if we got a grant tomorrow, and like the facilities department now has a list of roofs where we could say we're ready to go tomorrow for solar. And then there's also like prioritizing. Okay, you were explaining to me, like, you wouldn't want to put a solar roof on a roof that is going to need to be replaced in the next 5 years. It makes no sense. Like, you'd be pulling up all the solar all over again. So then you've got all this list of like the next schools to like hit these roofs, so that again, if you had a grant and opportunity to do solar tomorrow, we'd have roofs ready to go. So really cool, I thought, analysis.
And we have 3 roof projects that are slated for late spring, early summer. So that makes that number go to 6 overnight, literally. And then as we do more and more of these roof replacements, we'll make that footprint larger. Along with that, I will say we also have had, since our last meeting, a conversation with the city into their RFP in relation to solar. So the city's putting out an RFP. We're going to piggyback on that RFP to see what's available out there right now. So we have a lot of decisions to make, whether it's going to be managed outside, whether we're going to self-manage, who's going to own them, how much is going to go back to the grid, and what are we going to keep for ourselves? How does that work? Re-looking at our electric contracts. So there's a lot that goes into this, not belittling the work that we still need to do, but I think we're on the right path, at least in relation to the direction. So again, sorry for monopolizing the time. I'm happy to answer questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Burkhart, Mr. Hoying. And if you apologize one more time for doing your job so well, we're going to have serious problems in this committee. So one of the benefits, and we've talked about this via email, at least, of having real information like this is being able to ask them the right questions. It's certainly, I think, one of the most powerful things I can do sitting here is being able to ask the right questions of these folks. I always like to turn, since we're having an informational meeting too, this format fortuitously actually lends itself very well to having a conversation with y'all here, quite frankly, because when it's an official business meeting, it tends to move a little bit more like this. We still don't want to keep everybody here all day though, so I'm going to turn it over to y'all for at least like 15-20 minutes or so and go back and forth. If it takes longer, okay. I also know that there are people watching for whom this issue is very important, and the way the process works for y'all is go ahead and raise your hand, and Rob will take note of that. And if you don't mind, just kind of put in the chat if that's an option with this software, Rob. I don't really. Yeah, I'm the guinea pig, so running around in my little hamster wheel. It's anyway. Raise your hand if you don't mind. Putting your name, your school affiliation if you have one, and the issue you'd like to speak to. So you can do that now. We won't get to you till the meeting's over, but I don't want to forget to say that. So I'll turn it over to our friends from Spencer and Walnut, if you don't mind. I'm sure, like Mr. Burkhart said, you have some questions, and I only have like one, honestly, and it may get asked, so I'll wait till the end.
I just wanted to double check here how much time we have. You said 15 to 20.
Let's say we'll check in with one another here at 10:20.
Because we do have two people who have called in remotely who are part of our group. Andy Holshauser, who's a CPS parent, and he's works for Donovan Energy, and then Peter Marsh, who is with Citizens Climate Lobby like me, except he's at the nationally, he's part of the electrification team. And I don't know if it's possible for them to chime in after we make
That's what I was
comments
saying
here.
for like at the end of the meeting. Just again, it's just
Okay.
it gets a little unruly and odd.
That makes sense.
Unruly might be a little bit dramatic, but it can just be a little strange, unfortunately. And so,
No, that
all
makes
right,
sense.
for y'all, I can't see you. I know you can see me, and we're happy to have you here, but you don't get as much time as the young people. You got 2 minutes, so get it tight. Rehearse in your car. But these guys, they get more time. So let's turn it over to you.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that that was a very thorough analysis, and I appreciate that greatly because we put a lot of time and effort into composing a resolution that we feel sort of demonstrates the hopes that we have for the district's future. One of my initial questions, just sort of another ask, is would it be possible to do a solar analysis that looks more into the possibility of solar on like parking lots, for instance?
Yeah, so we're actually doing that work as well. Don't have a report to be able to show, and I would be remiss if I tried to give you something that wasn't complete. Right now, we are looking at both green space and parking lots. For example, this building out front here lends itself to be able to have a lot of solar panels on it. The building itself, because we have so many roof leaks, does not lend itself to having solar, but putting in the parking lot would be something that could be more turnkey versus not. So we are working on it as well. It's my hope that within the next couple of months that we have those solutions. As we are looking at areas also within our green space, we also have to figure out what is below the actual green space that we may not know about. So everyone knows about call before you dig. We also have to make sure that we are looking at those spaces and saying, okay, if we can put solar panels there, we're obviously going to have to dig and put infrastructure in. Can we do that as well? And so that comes as part of it. As General Counsel Hoying said, we have some geothermal in some of our green spaces. So we don't necessarily want to put solar panels on top of our geothermal. Could cause some problems. So we're looking at those as well. But it's a great question. And I commend you guys for really bringing up this cause. This is something that's near and dear to my heart as well. And so I feel like we're a little bit kindred spirits here, pushing this across the finish line.
It's true. He's not just saying that. He like bikes to work and hundreds and hundreds of miles at a time. And so seriously, it's true. He's not just saying that. And I feel the need to say that because oftentimes we say things like that. And he means it. So sorry.
Quick question. What of the 6 schools that are ready for solar panels? Oh, what schools are they?
So right now we have Ethel Taylor, Mount Airy, and Parker Woods are 3 that are ready right now. I'd have to look back through my notes and see which 3 we are actually replacing the roofs at this summer. I don't have all 66 memorized and which order they're in. We actually have a 5-year plan that we have nuanced with the board over the next 5 years. We hope to replace a majority of the roofs in the schools, as well as a lot of other areas that need to be replaced, and work that needs to be done within the district in relation to having all of our mechanicals upgraded, making sure that our areas are controlled and commissioned through those mechanicals, making sure that, our walls and ceilings are plastered, and, just everything that goes to it. It also includes energy savings with green vehicles as well. So we know we're going to have to spend money to save money. In the current climate that the district is in, we're looking at cutting $100 million out of the budget. And I know Treasurer Wagner is probably shaking her head saying, no, it's 107 or 120 or whatever. So I'll defer to her on what the actual number is, but I'm just going to use the 100 million as a placeholder at this point. And so how do we do this work while we're still cutting and we're in needs of cutting money? So we know that there's grants available out there as well. The IRA has some grants that will give us, anywhere from 30 to 40% of the money back. We still have to upfront that money, but we're looking at that, and we're in consultation with the city as well, because we're hoping to use the economies of scale. So if we just do one thing at one of our schools, it's going to be really expensive. But if we do 10 things at 10 of our schools, and the city's doing 10 things at 10 of their buildings or 10 of their properties, the economies of scale help us, and we can get a better rate. So we're having those conversations right now. I'm not ready to discuss any of those in public, but beyond the scenes, we are having those conversations.
Appreciate the opportunity here, and I really just the way the last meeting was, I thought, oh, this is the last opportunity to influence. I'm glad to hear that it's going to come back to.
Yeah, this stuff takes a long time.
Okay.
Especially massive transformational stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's actually moving at lightning speed, bureaucracy wise, in my opinion, to be where we're at today. So, but anyway, go ahead.
That's great. So a question that you brought up a couple of times was, who are the partners? And I think you might have been mentioning it for things like talking about Walnut Hills energy use, so at specific schools. But I took that to mean like who are the experts on electrification transition. And I reached out to CCL and one of the people, Peter Marsh, who is going to be able to talk a little bit later. He worked with the Long Beach USD district where he lives. After 2 years, a student group had been trying to get a green resolution passed. And his lifelong career with the Coast Guard actually helped him to be able to speak the language of, from a business perspective, like how, being able to use your recapitalization budget to positively influence your operational budget, it works perfectly here. Within a couple of months, he was able to help that group in Long Beach pass a resolution and do it in a very bold way.
Yeah, I did, and don't mean to interrupt you, but you teed something up that I was remiss in saying previously, which goes directly to the students in the groups within our district. Is we have a request for information right now on our website, and it's in relation to green sustainability practices. And so we're actually looking for any partners, either in the greater Cincinnati area first, because we want things to be local, but we also want, anyone who can assist us across the country in, green initiatives across our district. And I use the example of, we want to know what Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop, in Cincinnati can help us plant trees, all the way up to those multi-million-dollar ESCO companies that can help us with energy savings and everything in between. And so we know that there's experts, as Mr. Heckman was saying, there's experts out there who can help us. And we want to tap into those individuals. What we're going to do once, and the RFI is going to close at the end of February. And when I say close, It's not going to officially close, it's going to stay up, but we're going to start harvesting that information and start putting it in buckets so that we look at, for example, Green Seal certified chemicals. Who are experts who can help us in that realm? Talking about HVAC and some of those other things. Who are the experts who can help us? Some of those experts may be paid individuals that we have to then go through an RFP and go through that process. Some of them are going to say, hey, you know, I have expertise, and I know I have at least two gentlemen here who have been at the table a couple of times. We're going to tap into that expertise as well to help us, you know, get across the finish line quicker versus later. So sorry to interrupt you, but you teed that up for me, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone heard that, because I know we had that conversation outside of the meeting. I wanted to make sure we said that, you know, for everyone to hear.
I really appreciate, I mean, agreeing that we are directionally in the same aligned, right? I think that's speaks volumes. It's awesome. And I think that our resolution speaks mostly to the roadmap of how do you get to the goals that people who have, you know, cited at this problem. You know, when climate scientists talk about, you know, what is causing the global warming crisis, it is CO2 emissions and, you know, what organizations are using what type of energy. And when you're talking about, and that I wanted to share, so this is something that I would bring to the students to talk about. So each one of these little squares here is a year, starting with 1940, ending with 2023. And the colors correspond to whether or not, so there was a block of years from 1971 to 2020. That's a 50-year set of data. Whether or not those months were cooler or warmer than that block of years, 1971 through 2020. And you can see how quickly things change. And it shows, it's just a different way. I mean, my background is design related. This is a more impactful way of showing how quickly things are changing. And I was born right here. You guys were born probably also in the blue somewhere. These guys were born in the red, and it's getting, we're needing to, you know, get more shades of red or some other color to kind of show. So it's very quick. I'm happy that you're talking about being able to do things 10 schools at a time. And it's definitely, if we're using even a little bit of natural gas, we're still adding to this problem. And so we realize it's not going to happen overnight. There's no way that that can happen. But you know, to the extent that, especially, you know, when looking at the electric power purchase agreements in Ohio, over the last 12 years, we went from 80% coal to something like 40 and like 6% natural gas. Now natural gas comprises almost 50% of the way that electricity is powered. That demonstrates how quickly things can change. I hope that renewables are going to be a part of that. But one way that we can ensure that is that CPS commits dollars to say, yes, we are going to buy wind because we know this problem is, we don't want to participate in this problem anymore because of the people we serve.
Yeah, you bring up a couple of points, good points, and I want to make sure that I address each one of them as we're going, so I don't leave you at the end of the day saying, well, you didn't talk about this, or this. My brain doesn't work that I can put 17 of these in a compartment and then talk about them. But you bring up a couple of good points. One is renewable energy. Yes, we need to get a bigger footprint on renewable energy within our energy contract. We just signed an energy contract last July, and Sadly, we didn't have the ability at that time with our funding source to be able to take a bigger bite of the apple. We know that we can go back, and if and when those funds become available, that's absolutely something we're committed to doing. And I'm not saying it's going to happen within the next 4 years. It might happen 2 years, it might happen 5 years, but it's on our radar. We've had those conversations and continue to have those conversations with electric rates. The other thing that I thought that you brought up that was really impactful that I think that we have to nuance within our district is when we did our facility master plan 20 years ago, gas was cheap. Everyone was using gas. And so our schools were set up to use natural gas. And as we are changing to electric, it's adding some undue burden and undue cost as we are having to put in transformers and new electric service to those buildings to be able to stand up an electric infrastructure there. So what might seem as easy, hey, you have this, why don't you just change the electric and be done? It's the infrastructure piece that we're also having to stand up at the same time we're replacing and moving towards electric. So I don't want anyone to look at that as an excuse, but I'm looking at it as the reality of how we have to transition versus some districts who have that infrastructure in place, who weren't, reliant on natural gas. That's a much easier transition for them. I'm looking at a couple of schools right now, and trying to figure out how we get that service run to the school in a very, very short period of time, because school is going up till May. School starts in August. We really have 2 months to put an entire electric infrastructure in place at a school with transformers and Duke Energy at the same time, to make all that happen in a very, very tight window. And I'm not making excuses. That's not an easy stand up, but our facilities department has got the best minds working on this, and it's taken a lot of collaboration. So if it seems like we're not moving as fast as folks from the outside may envision, that's some of the inside baseball that we're working on. But I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's worth talking about.
And we appreciate all of the efforts that you are going through. And one thing that once we have done the most and passed the most bold resolution possible to change the policies that the district uses, we're going to take this show on the road and try and talk to as many other school districts locally in a similar fashion that Pete later on is going to be able to share and spread the good news that this is not only the right thing to do, but it is going to save your school district money operationally. Let's see.
Yeah, you got any more? Let's do like 5 minutes or so. If you got any more, and then Rob, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna kind of flip it on its head again. It's a different kind of meeting today, by necessity. And so, as such, our friends that are virtual, instead of waiting till the end, we'll give them their 2 minutes now. When our young friends are finished, and then we'll let them go now, and then we can move on with the rest of our agenda in the last 20 minutes or so. Dan, do you want to say something?
While you're looking at your notes, I was just going to say, there's so much of this is about funding. And it's going to come up every time you have this conversation. I just think it's really important to think about, there was a time in Ohio, in society, when people valued, school buildings so much. I mean, you go to Walnut Hills, you drive by Withrow. Withrow's got this beautiful clock tower in the Hughes High School has goblins. I mean, they built cathedrals. Because they thought it was so important where our young people went to school that we were going to put up the best buildings in the city. And that was like, I mean, look at the buildings that were built from, the next 50 years, they look more like strip malls. And so, like,
Is this on the record?
it is absolutely on the record. It is so important to push your governments and because if CPS has to worry about fixing roof leaks Like they're going to do that before they say, we got to do that before we put up a solar panel. We got to pay a fair wage to our folks. You know, it's just school funding is so important here. And it's obvious. I mean, you drive around the city, you can see what there was a time when people valued education so much that they built these beautiful buildings.
There.
Good.
So, I mean, talking about making sure that roofs are adequate for solar. I mean, that is definitely one way we can go. You know, I remember locally, the company Malink has put out just sharing that you know, if you were to try and approach a third party, you know, you're looking at no upfront costs for what you know you get as the clean energy benefit. The costs that she shared, the person sharing this, was around 3 cents a kilowatt hour. The city's looking at 3.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Very, very good prices. And those third parties might be looking at, well, you know, where can we put some kind of a large array? You guys have a lot of land. What I'd encourage is, you know, look at the properties and underutilized areas that then you can take if you are looking at this third party approach and say, you know, here you don't even have land acquisition costs. Just putting up solar and being able to have those on the same meters, but the upfront costs are by someone else, and you're just putting a
Yeah, that's something that we're currently wrestling with. So that's one model. So as you look at these companies out there who are saying, yes, you know, there's no upfront cost for you at all. We will come in, we will put solar panels. They also get the rights for the next 20 years. And so we don't know what even 10 years, 5 years down the road might look like. And so we might be cutting off our nose to spite our face in those situations. I'm saying these are discussions that we have to have. So if we were to find a funding source, either internally or borrow against the revenue, that might be a situation in which it's a win-win for us. We just don't know that yet, and we're doing our due diligence as the city is doing as well. I know the city had some situations in which they went out and had managed service. They are now looking at having that all in-house, and there's a reason why they've changed. And so I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad. There's a lot of due diligence because we don't know what the future is going to be bringing, and we don't want to do a long-term contract and then find out we should have done something else. And I'm not doing my job if I say, hey, let's enter in a 20-year contract or a 15-year contract, which is the return on investment for these types of jobs. And then we're stuck, and someone, you know, 15 years after whatever I'm gone or wherever, whatever happens, says, you know, that guy made a really bad decision. So I want to make sure that we're making the best decision that we can in the frame. I also, just real quick, and I knew Jen was going to do this. She corrected me on my 100 million. It's 104.7 right now that she highlighted to me. So just
So grateful Jen's watching.
so Jen, I know
Thank you, Jen.
you're on. If you want to chime in about the funding, if you're available. Did you want to spend 3 minutes and talk about the funding side of this?
Yeah, Treasurer Wagner, would you like to add your 2 cents? And then we're going to wrap this portion up and get to our folks who are online with their 2 minutes rehearsed in the car.
Good morning, everyone. So I am listening.
We'll give you 3 minutes because you're like in charge. Is that good?
I don't think I even need that. I think
Okay.
Chris did a very good job. I was just
Go ahead.
mostly just teasing him on the number. So there's been plenty of public presentations on the current state of our finances, but just to suffice is to say that the state funding formula doesn't meet our needs, and it puts a huge burden on our local property tax payers, which you know, the increase in property values has kind of freaked everybody out and upset all of our residents. So it creates even a bigger challenge as we continue to try to deal with the same economics increases in costs that everybody else is dealing with. And we just can't continue to pay for the same things that we're paying and do anything new or strategic. And, you know, the repair of our buildings, we knew was coming from the beginning of the facility master plan. We're, you know, a decade after that. And so we just need to be a little bit more strategic in how we spend our money. So thank you for giving me the microphone.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that everything discussed here today was incredibly insightful and very, very helpful to just my understanding of the broader state of the district, as well as, you know, sort of the feasibility of this resolution. And I think it's important that we keep in mind the exponential nature of the climate crisis, and that we find this and strike this balance between what is currently feasible, what will be feasible in the very near future, and also what is scientifically important to occur in order to secure us a future where we feel like we have this right to a safe and healthy and sustainable environment. And that is incredibly important to me, and I know incredibly important to thousands of students across the district and across the city and across the country and across the world. So yeah, that's my closing remark, and I deeply appreciate all of your work to help us get this passed. So thank you.
Would you like to add anything?
I totally agree with her, and I believe you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I can't wait what opportunities you can bring to the table.
Thank you so much. And I would just say that, you know, I concur with everything you just said as well. And we will absolutely do our best. And I appreciate your kind words as well, and saying we're doing a good job. I will encourage you as a former and still sometimes part-time activist turned elected official that's inside of a stifling bureaucracy, to always remember that we're not doing as good as we can, and to always continue to push us. And again, you know, it's sort of my job to be that conduit with these folks. But as you can see, and I'll take a quick point of privilege, if I may, the past couple of years have been out of the 7 years I've had this position, I've been fortunate enough to sit here in 5 years in this position, specifically as policy chair. The past 2 years have, without question, at least for me, shown me the most transparent data and information from folks over here. And so to your point, I agree with you 100%, because it's impossible, again, to ask the right questions if you don't have real information. And so thank you so much. And again, just please, please, please stay on top of us. And we're going to go to, or at least me, stay on top of me, and I'll do, I need it. Remind me, please. And we'll go to our friends, but real quick, if I can take another point of privilege. I know that's like a Robert's Rules-y term, and this isn't a real meeting, but whatever. If you don't mind, I don't want to be that adult, but I'm going to do it because you both impressed me a tremendous amount. What are you thinking about doing after high school? You're just worried about, and you're each going to get a turn, but I'm going to go to you first. What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking of majoring in public policy with a minor in environmental studies.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. And if you ever want to like shadow anybody or whatever, you know, I'm into, we have a lot of fun in here. We try to do good.
Yeah. And I'd also love to, you know, like run 100 miles.
Yeah.
You want? Or something.
I'll tell you about it. That was weird. We can talk about that too. That was weird. We were talking about it before the meeting, and he was telling me about all his crazy bike trips. Yeah. Cool. For sure.
I'm hoping to become a doctor.
Any specific kind?
I haven't figured out my specialty
Sure.
yet, but so far I've just always wanted to become a doctor. It's a bit of a cliche, but I've always wanted
Sounds
to
good.
help other people. You know,
Being a
That's fine.
doctor is no cliche.
Yeah. So like you want to be the type of doctor that can help people.
like yeah,
Yeah. Because I have
genuine.
you are like a doctor that does helpful things.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have my lead guitar player in my band. He's a doctor, but he can't help you. He wrote his dissertation on, actually, this is of interest to you. Sorry, reclaiming coal mining land in West Virginia
Oh.
was what his doctorate was in. Yeah, he works at Antioch. He runs the College of Education, the hippie college, but he can't help you. But you'll be able to help people.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
May I make just a really quick comment? This
Yes.
is for the treasurer again, and I just like to address my comments to the young professionals in the room. Having raised 3 daughters who are now all adults now, your parents should be very proud of both of you. You presented with such poise and professionalism, and I'm very impressed. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Treasurer Wagner. Awesome. All right. So we have 2 friends with their hands raised, I assume. Only 1 friend. All right. Well, Mr. Marsh, I believe.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
We got you.
fantastic. Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Chair Morosky and all the senior staff. My name is Pete Marsh. As Chris Heckman said, I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm lucky enough to be one of the co-leads of our National Electrification Action Team. And we, in conjunction with our Youth Action Team, we're supporting a campaign we call the Great School Electrification Challenge around the country with teams like this. Quick background, I'm out in California now, but I grew up in Kentucky, Boyle County high school graduate, and 1970 Cincinnati Reds fan, so a little linkage there. I served 25 years in the Coast Guard, 10 more in the defense industry with Booz Allen Hamilton and another company. During my Coast Guard time, I was fortunate to be involved in helping manage enterprise recapitalization for electronics, which is my primary specialty, but also for our facilities and even ships. And so I know firsthand the challenges of the enterprise budgeting and just to make you aware, I'm not expecting that money falls from the sky here. The Coast Guard, compared to the other military services, is a lot like school districts. We ran on a shoestring budget. For facilities in particular, we were constantly reminded that our recap budget allowed us to renovate each building in the Coast Guard at least once every 118 years. So I know the challenges. My master's is in telecom systems management, it's half electronics engineering, half MBA. Loved your point, Mr. Morosky, about the messy democracy and your engagement with the students who are sharper than I ever was, truly inspirational. Appreciate and agree with your assessment on the quality of the resolution they've presented. Here in Long Beach, California, our students presented a resolution nearly 4 years ago based on one that the Los Angeles School District had passed in 2019. Our resolution was much less specific than yours, and that caused some angst. So the board had concerns, as they rightly should, about cost, infrastructure, and risk. And goals. They said, the Los Angeles School Board is more prone to passing an aspirational resolution. This Long Beach board doesn't want to be aspirational. We want to see a clear path to being able to do it. And there was being able to see how we can execute. And a concept from one of the America, which advocates for just that. And their plan is elegantly simple. It's you don't have to convert all your machines from fossil electric right away, today or yesterday, but do it in accordance with your existing enterprise recap cycle. You've already got a plan. The only thing that changes is the cost of the machine. At present, many of the electric versions have a slight cost premium, 10, 20, a few cases, even 50%. Those are dropping as manufacturing improves. And I loved Mr. Burkhart's point about preparations that you're making and have to make with the infrastructure at each school. Infrastructure can sound scary and vague, but you brought specificity to it by describing wiring and transformers. And there's work to be done there, but it's not completely overwhelming. For the capital and for the what I like to call pre-wiring, there's lots of money, as I know you're aware, in the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed a year and a half ago. That will, in many cases, drive the cost of these electric machines and of the pre-wiring below the cost of an equivalent gas replacement. But even if they don't, the entire energy transition in which we're embarked, which is, and I heard discussion about technologies and early adopter versus good steward. The entire globe is in a transition. The energy sector is 15 to 20% of US and global GDP. And this entire transition is moving us to an energy economy where fuel doesn't exist. It's the fuel from the sun and the wind is free. But so even though your OPEX is massively lower, we are a little bit more capital intensive. So every project is CapEx heavier. So there's a shift coming in the way we do that. But the total
Mr. Martha, I'm
life
gonna
cycle
sorry. I'm gonna wrap up in a couple minutes, perhaps. I'm giving you more time because obviously it's a different kind of meeting. But
yeah,
we do a couple minutes,
sure
and then
appreciate
I'd
it.
encourage you to get with Mr. Burkhart for sure, if that would be all right too afterward.
I'd be delighted to do that and happy to provide any of this stuff in writing. And I will again, I sure appreciate. Oh, one other note, I heard the verbal and even in the chat suggestion that we share our connection, but the chat is disabled. So if somebody could enable that, I can drop a couple of nuggets in that as well.
I blame the new software.
Absolutely. Mr. Burkhart, I heard your concern about the ESCOs and the manner of paying. Do we want to give away our roofs for 20 years? I completely agree with that hesitation. I think anything as a service is fundamentally just a lease, and there's a finance company taking some of the money you would have otherwise saved. So despite the fact that it is more CapEx intensive, I always prefer to go with owner-owned systems instead of leased. I guess what I'll close with is Chris Heckman mentioned that the transition from coal to gas in Ohio, but also nationally and globally, shows just how quickly things can happen. That transition has been incredible. Nationally in the US, from about just before 2005 through 2020, coal declined from 55% on average for the previous several decades of US electricity generation to about 20%. This year, it's down to 14%, 2023, from 55%, and that's in less than 2 decades. Gas has increased and has displaced most of that, but Chris kind of left open the question of what we hope that renewable energy is going to come along and do the same thing to gas. And I can tell you from studying the energy transition, that is happening more rapidly than you can possibly think. Starting in about 2017, wind and solar comprised 2/3 to 3/4 of new electricity generation in the US every year, and gas was down to 1/3. Last year, 2023, gas is less than 5%. Wind and solar are 95% of new electricity generation, and they're winning on cost. And the same transformation is happening in all the end use machines. And I heard you've done lots of good research on several of the different technologies, HVAC, vehicles, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty. I think vehicles are a great illustration of what's happening. We know that over the last decade, we've gone from thinking that EVs are a glorified golf cart and a joke to $100,000 Tesla Model S is outperforming multi-million-dollar hypercars and operating more cheaply. Trucks, medium-duty, heavy-duty trucks, vans, all the way up to Class 8 over the road are roughly a decade behind, but there's a rapidly burgeoning shift in that industry. And the same is happening in HVAC and landscaping equipment, all the other things you mentioned. Thank you so much for giving me some time and a little extra time. And very, very impressed with what you all are doing as a leadership team, and greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. We appreciate it. And you're welcome to stick around, of course, and listen to the few things to talk about or get on with your day. And again, thank you, Treasurer Wagner. Thank you, Mr. Burkhardt. Thank you, Mr. Hoying. Thank you, our friends, our students, the CPS schools, and Mr. Heckman. And then, yeah, the only thing I will say in closing, and then we'll probably smoke through a lot of this because we can't really do any business today. So it's not like we're going to be able to move anything forward or anything like that. So Ms. Davis, we'll put this issue back on the agenda for next month. We'll have the resolution come back. We'll just continue talking about it. And the goal for next month's meeting will be to move some version, ideally this one, out of the committee to the full board for adoption. And so the next big step, just to remind my activist friends, is, step one was y'all bringing this. Step two was staying on top of us. Step three was getting it to this committee. Step four was showing up, which you've all done a wonderful job of. And as Mr. Hoying said, the resolution itself was done really well the first time. Step 4 or 5, whatever step I'm on now, will be to get it out of this committee back to the board for them to say yes. And then all the steps after that, leading well into the future, are to actualize the things that this says, which is where I'll sort of end. So policy is not prescriptive in nature. It's meaning, the things we do in this committee are not necessarily giving direct orders. This is a kind of a hybrid sort of resolution, I would call it, coming out of policy that the resolution dictates what happens, but the policies that would follow would not. And so we create policies here that then guide the administration to create procedures. So we have an anti-racism policy that says you have to be this way. The superintendent then and her team sitting over here then would come up with, for example, here is how we then operate in the schools. That's not my job. That's the smart people's job. My job is to look at the big thing and help good things happen. That's how I see my job anyway. And so this resolution we can kick out of here. We can give it to the administration. The thing that I keep hearing over and over again, and it's the hardest thing to address, and it's the massive, massive elephant in the room, is a timeline. And I know that's a difficult thing. I'm not dumb enough to speak on behalf of the administration, but I know that that's a hard thing. And so one thing I'd like to talk about next time is, what is that? I don't think we need to do that today. But what is a feasible timeline? And don't just say 50 years because it gives, or 10. What is a feasible timeline? Mr. Burkhardt's already given a specific timeline on, for example, the 6 schools versus 3, right? And so we can chat more about that the next time. But this resolution, once approved by the board, will certainly give them direction. And then just a couple editorial comments on my end that I think is exciting, because this is the most sustained conversation I've been a part of regarding this issue in my 7 years here this day. Which I think is significant. I mean, it's over an hour talking about this one issue, which is very important and may not seem like a long time, but taking an hour of all of these very smart, important people's time to meet with even more important people is a lot for this system. So I think that's noteworthy. I also think it's noteworthy, and those of you who know me, which is most all of you, no, I can't get out of anything without commenting on those who make this more difficult. I'm happy and grateful that in our district, Mr. Heckman, that you can hold up graphs like that and nobody disagrees. There are a lot of strange and hateful politics in school boards across this state where if you were to hold that up, people would laugh about it. I'm just grateful that we don't live in that district. I'm not grateful that we live in the state of Ohio, controlled by state government that dislikes both of you and makes real laws to make your lives worse. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself right now, since we're in an informational meeting. Not that stops me when we're in a business meeting, but I take it as a great responsibility to stand up to these hateful people, to ensure that you actually have a planet to live on, yes, but also that you have a planet to live on where you can be who you want to be, love who you want to love, hang out with who you want to hang out with, etc. And so that's my promise to you. As you heard many times today, and we're not passing the buck. We're not in that business, but a lot of these things are unfortunately more difficult because of the state, in which we live in. These folks over here just do I don't know how they do it. But especially Treasurer Wagner, it's hard for them. So thank y'all again. Thank you so much. In closing, we'll come back to this next month, and you are welcome to go. I understand you're skipping school. Is that right?
Yes, but with the blessings of our teachers.
No, I think it's great.
Yep.
No, hey, look, I would think, hey, look, blessing or no, I think this is more, as important. Okay, so I'll stop. Thanks for being here. Tell your teachers I said hi. Tell Mr. Gibson I said hi. Swing by the music room. He's at Walnut right now. He's texting me, telling me to get back to work. So I'll see you. Yeah, I like you. Thank you. And someday I look forward to you helping me. So, doctor. Cool. Have a good one, y'all. Okay. So I am going to look to Mr. Hoying to give me some help, like, quite frankly, like what we can do,
Yep.
What can we do right now?
I can do this really quickly, I think.
All right.
So House Bill 68, we drafted the resolution.
Speaking
to
of.
oppose. Yep. Exactly.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's
Go ahead.
on message.
Yes.
We put a draft together after the meeting last. I think the policy committee already moved this resolution forward. It didn't get voted on or acted on at the last board meeting, but I think it can be acted on the February 26th meeting with or without a resolution to waive. Bye, friends. Thank you.
See you, Doc.
See ya.
Have a good one.
So House Bill 68 resolution has already been moved forward by the committee. So it could be added to the agenda okay, we'll do that. Board member Mapp expressed an interest in sponsoring this one just because it's related to her work. So we'll make sure she's comfortable moving that forward. The conflict of interest policy, I think, is one that especially board member Lindy wanted to look at. So we'll bring that back. We don't have any recommendations yet, but I know that'll be for discussion, I think, in March. Phyllis is like typing. Students experiencing homelessness is a policy that we should be reviewing every year. All we're going to do at this point, we have looked at it. Our fantastic intern, Ms. Dio, took a look at it to make sure it was consistent with current law. The homelessness department, Rebecca Beach, and her team looked at it. It is consistent. So all we're going to do there is say that it's been updated, or I'm sorry, reviewed.
Okay.
And use of district vehicles is a new policy that we drafted. That's responsive to the audit, if you remember.
Yep.
So that's one the board's going to have to look at, or the policy committee is going to have to look at next time. Student fees is the last one that was on the agenda today. Superintendent has a interest in trying to move forward for the 24-25 year, a recommendation to stop the district-wide student fee.
Yep.
So the sooner we can get that moving, but March is fine. We can move that, look at it in March, and then hopefully get it passed.
Yeah, and I know everybody agrees with that. Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
just can't. We have to officially do it here for it. So
I think so. If
All right.
if there was an interest in board members, it would just be a 48-hour waiver at the next meeting. So
okay, which will probably
I think it's fine in March. I think the direction is we're going toward.
Yep. Cool. Is that it?
That's it. That's all I got, unless you have anything.
Hey,
for us.
no disrespect to my colleagues, but can we have more informational meetings? I got here today. I was like, man, all right, well, let's do it anyway. This was really great. So thanks so much. Have a great 3-day weekend. If you actually do have one, I'm not certain anybody on this side of the
Not
table
in
that
this room.
matters for. So to some of Emily, Miss Bell's friends, hopefully some of them have a 3-day weekend. Maybe not. Probably not. Anyway.
There is.
All right, y'all. This informational meeting is